Just how significant is a first impression? Whenever we meet someone or become aware of a piece of music, a show, or in this case a video game, for the first time in our lives. A good first impression will inadvertently shape our social circles, our tastes, and even our morals. Especially in the 21st century, where forms of fictional media indoctrinate the world to a specific set of ideals, even emotional responses. Many Kingdom Hearts fans seem to perpetuate this rose-tinted retelling of this one TV commercial. And at that point, their fate was sealed. They were getting that game. Or visiting a relative's house, only to be subject to a more hands-on experience, totally in the dark as to what to expect. For me, I think something similar happened. See, I have Irish family, and when I was very young, I spent a portion of my childhood living and going to school there. My cousin was absolutely responsible for everything I loved, everyone I knew, even everything I did. It was the first time visiting my cousin in their new house, which my father and I had a hand in building. Well, as much as a 7-year-old could help out. My cousin took my brother and I on a tour of his new room, and he had the CRT and PlayStation 2 waiting for us. He presented us with 2 games and said, "Which one first?" The game in his left hand was one that I vaguely recognized. It was called Dark Cloud. It must have been at his last house, because right then and there I had this firm, stark recalling of these otherworldly belly dancers, sporadically jostling to perform this mysterious ritual, this military figure, and this fat merchant speaking big boy words I failed to pass. "The genie," they said. The genie appeared. This gargantuan purple man thing. He yawned, smiling. I couldn't really make anything of it. I'd never seen anything like it, ever. It speaks. They speak. Some more dialogue is exchanged. Then this happens. Mortality was no concept to me until that point. That scene would continue to replay in my head for many years to come, and I remember my body wincing and curling away. I did not want to play that game, so I picked the game in his right hand, a game called Kingdom Hearts. I didn't play Kingdom Hearts that day, but my first memory of it was gleefully watching my cousin struggle to fight the Phantom Heartless. It looked complicated. Remember, we weren't even teenagers at this point, so the thought of applying the internal colors to each element and cast the correct magic spell was arguably a step beyond hitting the baddies with the giant key until they were gone. And I believe that was it. That was my first memory of Kingdom Hearts. I can't really recount the details, it's still hazy. I don't think he ever left Neverland, but the game did escape my mind. It wasn't until my 8th birthday the next year. It was the most valuable and expensive gift I'd ever received. A blue Game Boy Advance SP. Once again, my cousin existing and acting vicariously through my subconscious. Watching him through our countless sleepovers playing Pokemon, I wanted that. So, scrounging up my birthday card money, I had the chance to barely squeeze 2 games. Sometime later, we'd head off to the local Extravision, basically an Irish Blockbusters. Of course, I hunted for Pokemon Fire Red. This was around 2005, so Gen 3 was in full force. But I didn't know what else to get. I mean, a Game Boy for us kids on the playground was just a Pokemon machine. The shelves in this section were so stacked, I was honestly spoilt for choice. But one box revealed itself. It's silver, twinkling against the car headlights from outside the store windows. It was that boy again. It was that key again. I remember this. I knew I saw him from somewhere. This was my other choice. So, naturally, I would become addicted to Pokemon. But whenever I tried Chain of Memories at that age, I'll be honest, I did not like it. So I didn't really get that far in the game. You can actually see my childhood save files on screen right now. Incredibly unceremonious, I know. But this was my first experience playing Kingdom Hearts. This was my first real impression. It wasn't until I'd buy Kingdom Hearts 2 a couple of years later where I solidified myself as a friend of Sora's. I think the reason why I'm telling this story to you is because, well, if first impressions can shape our views, then what can memories do? One saying my dad would always hearken back to was, "Time is the best healer." But now, years later, I disagree. I actually think time is the killer of feelings. It doesn't really heal, does it? It numbs, it grants you perspective and change, but a distant memory can transform into delusion, perhaps even a lie. People often remember what they were doing when that TV commercial came on, what they were eating or how they were sitting. They remember what their friend's house smelled like, and the patterns on the walls of the bedroom as they'd stay up all night tackling Sephiroth in the Colosseum. See, I think we can all stand in tandem with our first impressions and how fond they were. We may even have almost identical origins. But I realized something quite somber about mine. I was friends with Naminé long before Kairi. You know, even saying it out loud is so backwards. I mean, the precedence of Naminé's entire existence is going into the story knowing Sora's connection to Kairi, but it kind of feels like, as a Kingdom Hearts fan, I was born with Naminé. I still cherish the same very copy of Chain of Memories. It's the only Game Boy Advance game I have left that's still boxed. It's as much of a mesmerizing blessing to my eyes as the day its silver sealed my future. This is my favorite composition of Sora, by the way, in the whole series. Just the way he's posed and slightly tilted on the box. Both familiar and unfamiliar faces on cards plaster the background, overlapping one another, outlined with gold in this chrome void. I had no idea who these kids were. As you could imagine, I didn't give any of this much thought. I'd just evidently rip off the top and pop in the cartridge. But there's one card set aside from the rest of this deck splayed out. The only card resting above the title of the game itself. You know, it's ironic, isn't it? How a game that urges you through hallways and rooms plagued in white is the black sheep of the series. Characters in this game are eerily ambiguous and viciously mean-spirited. Sora, in many cases, demonstrates this bite and quick fuse that we don't see before. The entire game and its themes just feel mature, and in more ways than one, it tackles themes of trust and identity in a far more poignant and even brutal manner than Kingdom Hearts 2. They are kicked while they're down, ribs are shattered, consciousness confiscated, the last bit of life they have choked out of them, burned alive. Castle Oblivion's blinding walls are juxtaposed by an astonishing bout of cruelty. Each major antagonist is washed in total black, but this girl is just white, almost like black can be a chasm. The absence of something, a clean slate, a canvas to impose your thoughts, your feelings and experiences. It's why Naminé's sketching these crude, infantile stories is so fitting. Her existence is comprised of snapshots of other people, and when she isn't stringing together her fairy tales, she is constantly and diligently bludgeoned by these people, taunted and inundated with this cycle of doubt and self-loathing. Naminé is honestly the biggest anomaly in Kingdom Hearts. She's technically classified as a nobody, sure, but she isn't really categorized with the same rules and abilities as anyone we know. Even her name, derived from Nami to parallel Kairi, is never concretely bestowed to her like anyone else, how Xemnas would insert the recusant sigil into an anagram of the somebody's real name. Even how she was conceived should be brought into question. One of the prerequisites for someone having a nobody is for that person to turn into a heartless. But because Kairi is a princess of heart, a true light, she is utterly devoid of darkness. It isn't just that Kairi never had a heartless, it isn't possible for her to have one. This makes Naminé something along the lines of a dual nobody, being influenced by two people instead of one. You'd think this works like Xemnas, who is influenced by both Terra and Xehanort. But not quite. The bigger difference here is, of course, Apprentice Xehanort or Terranaut always had a huge influx of darkness within him. Terra always struggled with his, which took manifest as the Guardian. And, well, Xehanort is Xehanort. Ansem is without a doubt the most diverse and intelligent Heartless to ever exist, but Xemnas as a physical being takes the more traditional route, just being Terra's body but in his 30s. Marluxia is Laurium's body in his 20s, same with Larxene to Elrena, Axel to Lee, so on and so forth. Both Naminé and Roxas are completely original in this regard, albeit for different reasons, as they can act and exist independently from their original human counterparts. So here we can explore the difference between one's heart being overtaken or embracing darkness, and one's heart just being sacrificed or removed from the body. Sora didn't succumb to the darkness, and he didn't lose to it. Because she obviously can't have a Heartless, Kairi immediately regains herself after Sora's sacrifice, even before he's completely dematerialized. But this is where things get really bizarre. Ol Yen insists that the Heartless and the Nobody must be vanquished for the human to come back. Sora was only a Heartless for give or take a few minutes, but Kairi's embrace brings Sora back intact, despite Roxas being born. Even stranger yet, other organization members wake up upon being defeated where they were vanquished, so you could assume their Nobodies were born there too, but Roxas appears in Twilight Town, a place Sora has never been. The world cards in Chain of Memories were cultivated from Sora's memories, so being a town only Roxas knows means that Naminé can extract and control his memories too. And of course, Roxas takes on the exact likeness of Ventus, who sought refuge within Sora just like Kairi, but we will get to that. You'd think that in order for a Nobody to come into being, a Heartless must manifest as a stern prerequisite. But not only was Naminé the only Nobody born without Kairi's Heartless, she absolutely demonstrates a number of complex and seasoned emotions over the course of a few weeks, especially if we can trust the chronology of days. And we also never see her being raw dead inside like other newborn Nobodies or people that have had their hearts tampered with. Because of this, many of us believe that Sora's Heartless was used as the prerequisite for Naminé. But even that is a unique notion in and of itself, because it would imply that one Heartless can spawn more than one Nobody. Well, many of us have already assumed that the only reason Naminé has blonde hair and not red auburn hair like Kairi is also possibly an influence from Ven. Hey, we can even keep running on this track and realize that Vanitas, upon his defeat, found his way back to Ven, which would mean by proxy, Vanitas was also within Sora during Kingdom Hearts 1. If the unversed are derived from his negative emotions, it would imply that Vanitas has his own heart. Maybe this was, again, another influence from Ven, and maybe, by proxy, they are also based on his negative fledgling emotions. It's an interesting thought to ponder if the reason why the Unversed looks so much like Heartless is possibly due to Ven's latent, dormant experiences with Heartless during the Key Saga. And the darkness that took form as Vanitas used those negative experiences as a blueprint for the Unversed. But that's just complete speculation. What am I even suggesting? That Vanitas should breed his own Heartless and therefore have a Nobody? No, that's not what I'm saying at all, but I think it's actually the destruction of their bodies and how their hearts reside within the person which determines this, and by they, I'm also referring to Ericus. Ericus' physical body, much like Vanitas, was destroyed, the remnants of Ericus' heart neatly tucked away in Terra, as evident with foreshadowing in this scene in Birth by Sleep, and of course laid bare in Kingdom Hearts 3. But here comes the difference. Xehanort's and Terra's heart was struggling internally for dominance over the body. Ericus was, how I see it, killed by Master Xehanort. Kairi never perished. This would explain the birth of both Ansem and the Guardian, being joined together with their designs symbolizing Xehanort's triumph over Terra's existence. Because of the destruction of Ericus and his body, perhaps that's why Ericus didn't spawn a Heartless or a Nobody of his own. Same with Ven, and by extension Vanitas. However, Ven's body still exists, hidden in Castle Oblivion. And we come full circle. If Ven had an influence over Naminé's hair color, could the location of his body have had an influence over Naminé's birthplace? Marluxia says this to refute Vexen in this scene.
I've been entrusted this castle in Naminé by our leader.
Aside from confirming that Xemnas was the first one to her, could Xemnas have found her with Castle Oblivion? I'm not entirely sure. Diz takes Naminé to the mansion during days, right after Chain of Memories, but a time before the walls of the White Room had any drawings, implying that this was her first time here. Now, I believe the real answer is we aren't supposed to think that hard about it. It's not like we're out here breaking down the science behind Vexen's replica program, but for me, one of the unfortunate yet unavoidable writing challenges for Kingdom Hearts 3 was just having so many characters to account for. So many plot threads to bow tie in a congruent fashion. Kingdom Hearts 3 was not a sequel. It was a conclusion to an almost 20-year-long continuous saga, all the while sprinkling in tidbits of the Lost Masters arc. Going into this new saga though, I absolutely believe utilizing Naminé's powers to unlock Ven's memories will serve for indisputably some of the best character building and interactions we will ever see. And unraveling this side of her would dismantle the notion that she was ever a dual nobody, and concretely confirm her relation to Ven. The ultimate summary of Naminé's powers have been described as having the ability to manipulate Sora's memories and those closest to him. But I keep thinking back to this scene in Recoded, where Naminé brings out the manifestation of not Sora's memories, but...
These are my memories?
Actually, no, they're not yours. They belong to people who are connected to you.
Naminé reveals how these memories are latent and sleeping, but these memories are too painful to awaken. The overarching primary theme of Coded is learning to take accountability for that pain, that hurt, facing that darkness to make tomorrow a little brighter. During this cutscene, we are introduced to not only Roxas, not only Xion, but Ven. At face value, yes, of course she's referencing the events of Birth by Sleep, but this is now the new saga. How perfect then is it that Ven would also wield Missing Ache in Union Cross? In a way, Naminé would fundamentally draw the bridge between the Key Saga and modern day. What if they stumble upon Lauriam and Elrena too? Ven reuniting with his ancient comrades, but Naminé reuniting with her previous oppressors and abusers. I'd love to witness that brief moment of apprehension, that click moment that maybe something about Naminé subconsciously reminded Marluxia of someone else, someone who he forgot he was searching for. But Naminé must come to realize that maybe they aren't the same people as they used to be. Although it would be a shame if Elrena completely lost her Larxene attitude. So either way, it would be a great moment. Characters' abilities and narrative purposes have been repurposed and given buffs for years, so perhaps Naminé could extend her memory manipulation to more than just who gave birth to her. Because isn't this really all about growth? About shedding the life you once had, the purpose you once thought defined you? Exactly like Xion, Naminé is now her own person, relieved from the clasp of Organization 13. But that's why I'm making this video. I really want to celebrate that, and it worries me to no end that Ven's Chirithy could act as the intermediary between Ven and his memories, instead of Naminé. This quote by Naminé makes me weary of this.
Not remembering something doesn't really mean that it's gone.
What do you mean?
When you remember one thing, that leads to remembering another. And then another, and then another.
Chirithy's sole purpose is to shield the Dandelion's memory specifically from the Keyblade War, and isn't the reason why he has amnesia. That's more of a side effect of the lifeboat. But even more so, Naminé's complete abandonment in Melody of Memory, a game about exploring Kairi's memories. It really does upset me. I don't want Naminé to sit on the beach, building sandcastles, while, just as it figures, all the Keyblade wielders are actually the ones soaking up the rays. She deserves more, and she always did. Notice how I haven't even entertained the thought of Naminé getting her own Keyblade, because she doesn't need one. Axel got a Keyblade because he was already a fan favourite, and Xigbar having newfound importance doesn't change the fact that he was always my favourite character since Birth by Sleep. To me, Naminé achieved and prevailed over something incredible. She survived. She endured her trauma and still had the courage to channel it into everything she could to save the people she was coerced into dooming. I actually think her getting a Keyblade defies that entirely. Naminé is enough. She always was. Every single thing after Kingdom Hearts 1, Sora's absence leading to the conflict between Riku and Roxas, the birth of Shionne's personality, everything that Diz managed to accomplish and even ruin behind the scenes would never have seen the light of day, if not for Naminé. Even still, it's hard not to talk about Naminé without talking about Ven, Sora, Shionne, Marluxia, but most of all, Kairi's treatment over the years. So many of us still yearn for a true Kairi game, but they've made admirable strides and attempts, evidently, although a few steps back too. Look, let me be honest, Kingdom Hearts as a story is a shonen anime. It is an action RPG, but it still relies far too much on the tropes it should have abolished or at least evolved from in the 2000s. I'm not the first person to compare the trio archetype of Naruto and Sasuke to Sora and Riku, and naturally, Sakura's mistreatment to Kairi. The author, Kishimoto, notoriously admitted to having trouble writing female characters, but I think the treatment of female characters in Kingdom Hearts isn't as egregious as it is sorely lacking, and the feeling that there's a lot more to explore. But isn't that in and of itself egregious? Like, here you go, you were lagging behind, so here's a Keyblade for you to catch up to the cooler characters who do things. How do Riku get this? I don't know, I'll explain it whenever I feel like it. They can do better. But sniffing the potential like a carrot on a stick doesn't feel great as the years trickle on by. See, part of the magic is really us, and how we retroactively fill in the blanks and hone in on those subtextual aspects that can either be easily missed or just not talked about enough. Aba has this entertaining and engaging deconstruction of Naminé's neglect, not just by characters in the story who have yet to answer for their sins, but also just the writers and even us. After Hours' deep dive into the duality of Naminé and Marluxia, eloquently scripted for you to lay bare each theme, each carnal desire, is also a crucial watch. We're now in this climate where we can oftentimes miss the forest for the trees, and instead of including characters so imperative like Naminé in that discussion, we theorize about a character who doesn't even have a usable official render yet. I suppose his first impression was just that strong. But I don't really know where we'd be if Naminé didn't give Sora that choice to sleep for a year. Where we'd be if Naminé didn't say no to Marluxia that final time. Where we'd be if Naminé didn't call upon lingering will. I don't know where I'd be if I didn't see Chain of Memories on the shelf that day. But maybe where you come from, those people, those memories, don't have to define you. Maybe it's where you end up, how you take those memories, the good and the bad, those mistakes and those solutions, to make something better. Only to find out you were always enough. So give thanks, because Naminé belongs, and so do you.